The Magic Paintbrush. Thomas had always been an energetic and vibrant 12-year-old, his small frame barely containing the endless well of enthusiasm he carried inside him. He lived in a humble cottage on the edge of a quiet village, with the towering hills on one side and the vast forest on the other. His mother, Clara, worked tirelessly as a seamstress, stitching clothes for the villagers, making just enough to get by. They didn't have much, but what they did have was each other. And to Thomas, that was enough. Until one fateful day. The walls of their small home were covered in Thomas's paintings. Every room was filled with splashes of color and vivid images. Forests he'd never seen, people he'd never met, and faraway lands where magic danced in the air. His mother, though exhausted from her work, always took the time to look at each new piece he created, smiling softly at the boundless imagination of her son. She'd often tell him, "One day, Thomas, your art will make the world brighter." But lately, there had been a weight in the air. Clara had been coughing more frequently, her face pale, and there was a weariness in her eyes that Thomas couldn't ignore. When she started to fall ill, Thomas could only watch, helpless and unsure of what to do. Her condition worsened, and he knew he had to do something, even if he didn't know what. One afternoon, as he sat by her bedside, his heart heavy with fear, he decided to go into the forest. It wasn't far, and he had heard that the old trees held the herbs needed to cure all sorts of ailments. If only he could find them in time to save his mother. He packed a small basket with bread, an apple, and a flask of water and set off. The forest was dense, the trees towering over him like silent sentinels. The air smelled of pine and earth, and the only sound was the rustling of leaves. Thomas pushed through the underbrush, his mind filled with thoughts of his mother and his fear for her health. He wandered deeper and deeper, hoping to find the herbs he needed. Just as the sun began to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows across the forest floor, Thomas stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood an old man, hunched over a walking stick, his clothes ragged but his eyes bright and clear. He had a long white beard that flowed down to his chest, and his face, though weathered, held a certain warmth. Thomas approached cautiously, unsure of who this man was. "Excuse me, sir," he said, his voice shaky. "I'm looking for herbs to cure my mom. She's really sick. Do you know where I can find them?" The old man smiled softly, his wrinkles deepening. "Ah, young one, your heart is full of love for your mother. I can see that. But sometimes it is not herbs alone that heal. Sometimes it is the heart that needs the right touch." Thomas frowned, not understanding. "But she's really sick. I need to help her. Is there anything you can do?" The old man looked at Thomas thoughtfully for a long moment. Then, with a slow movement, he reached into his worn satchel and pulled out a small, intricately carved paintbrush. Its bristles shimmered in the fading light, glowing with an ethereal radiance. "This," the old man said, handing the brush to Thomas, "is no ordinary brush. It will enhance whatever you paint, giving it a magic all its own. The colors you create with it will bring joy, beauty, and life. Use it wisely." Thomas took the brush, bewildered but intrigued. "How can a paintbrush help my mom?" "Ah," the old man smiled, "it will help you in ways you cannot yet understand. But first, you must paint with all your heart. Paint what you desire most, and the brush will reveal its power." With that, the old man turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving Thomas standing in the clearing, the brush warm in his hand. The next day, as Thomas sat by his mother's side, he thought about the old man's words. What did he mean? How could painting help? But he didn't have time to question it. He had heard a rumor at school. There was a grand painting competition coming up, and the prize was enough to change his life. If he won, he could use the prize money to pay for his mother's medicine, or perhaps even find someone to help her in ways he couldn't. He grabbed the magic paintbrush, his hands trembling. As he dipped it into his paints, something extraordinary happened. The colors on his canvas shimmered, glowing brighter than any paint he had ever used. The strokes of his brush seemed to dance on their own, swirling into shapes and patterns that filled him with a sense of purpose he'd never felt before. Thomas painted with all his heart. He painted a large, sprawling tree with bright green leaves, its roots tangled deep in the earth. He painted flowers of every shade, blooming all around the tree, and a sky that was the brightest blue he had ever seen. His painting felt alive, filled with energy and hope. When the day of the competition arrived, Thomas felt a nervous excitement in his chest. He stood in front of the judges, his painting set up on an easel. The room was full of artists, all older and more experienced than him. But when the judges' eyes landed on his creation, a hush fell over the crowd. It wasn't just a painting. It was a window into another world. The colors seemed to move, to change, as if the painting itself was breathing. The judges were mesmerized. This is unlike anything we've ever seen," one of them said, his voice filled with awe. And when the competition was over, Thomas's painting was declared the winner. The prize was a sum of money that far exceeded anything Thomas had ever imagined. He could buy the medicine his mother needed, pay for a doctor's care, and even more. He felt a weight lift from his shoulders, and for the first time in weeks, he could breathe a little easier. But there was still something on his mind: the old man and the magic paintbrush. The next evening, after his mother had begun to feel better, Thomas returned to the forest, the paintbrush tucked carefully into his bag. He found the clearing where he had met the old man, but no one was there. He called out, "Sir, I've won the competition, and I want to return the brush to you. It helped me so much." To his surprise, the old man appeared from behind a tree, a soft smile on his face. "You have returned, young one. I knew you would. But you do not need to return the brush. It was meant for you. Keep it as a gift, a reminder of the power you hold within yourself." Thomas looked at the brush in his hand, the colors still shimmering on its bristles. "But I don't know what to do with it. I just wanted to help my mom." The old man chuckled. "You already have. You've learned that art has the power to heal, to inspire, and to bring hope. Your mother is better, not because of the brush, but because you believed in yourself. Now, use this brush to paint your dreams. Let it guide you, and never stop creating." Thomas felt a warmth spread through him. "Thank you," he whispered. As the old man vanished back into the trees, Thomas stood there, the brush still in his hand, and for the first time in a long while, he felt at peace. The magic wasn't just in the paintbrush, it was in his heart. The colors would always be there, ready to come to life with each stroke, each new creation. And with that, Thomas knew he would never stop painting, never stop dreaming, and never stop believing.